Singapore is a modern 21st century city-state, but it's also a very conservative society, and many people want to keep it that way. But there are some individuals who go against the grain a little to deliver satirical entertainment. Case in point is the very popular comedian and actress Michelle Chong, who's also branched into making movies.
If you want to cut it off altogether, then we get a close-up of the...
Michelle Chong directing her second yet-to-be-released feature, Three Peas in a Pod, a romantic comedy. She is a big fan of local cinema in all of its varieties and richness, and only too happy to tell you of its charms.
I love Singapore cinema because Singaporean films are the only films where you can hear people speaking proper English, Singlish, Chinese, Singaporean Mandarin, Hokkien, and many other dialects in one movie. So you have to watch a Singapore movie.
Can you give me an example of Singlish?
Of course lah, you first time here you don't know meh? How can that be? You come here how long already? How many hours already? Surely you know some Singlish by now lor.
This vivacious Singaporean won a lot of attention with her first film, already famous, released in 2011, which focused on a young woman from neighbouring Malaysia just to the north of Singapore who wants to make it big in the city-state. It did well at the box office.
Already Famous is about a Malaysian girl, small-town Malaysian girl, coming to Singapore and wanting to be a star. I guess it's about what I experienced and what I observed and what I saw when I was a nobody, and then as compared to now, I won't say I'm a somebody, but I'm recognized and people respect me perhaps a bit more than when I was first starting out, and I saw how people treated extras, you know, and also I think people in positions of power are just generally more careless with people's feelings, and especially in this industry, and it's so easy to give hope to people who are just starting out and then to crash their hopes just like that without even knowing what you've done to them.
What about the issue of discrimination? I mean, in some countries, the activity of film directing is very much a male preserve. Do you feel that you have to fight any discrimination here at all?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges that I had doing my first film was because I was female and 80% of a production team or of the crew are male, and I think they came with let's see what she can do kind of attitude. Perhaps, you know, they didn't really believe in what I wanted to do, but I guess the thing was just to persevere and believe in my vision.
Singapore has the reputation of being a nanny state, where chewing gum is banned, and where there's a law stipulating that public lavatories must be flushed. It's also a place where the state very closely supervises what's disseminated through the media. There's strict content regulation, and that extends to film.
What I'll do is we'll start from this.
Filmmaker Ken Kwek, seen here auditioning young talent for his forthcoming feature, has felt the full force of state control. Last year, his picture, Sex, Violence, Family Values, a collection of 3 short films, got banned. In one sequence, an Indian character becomes the object of a racist tirade. After a long appeals process, the film got passed after cuts were made. Ken Kwek maintains his picture was a satirical commentary on racism. The racist rant was there to enlighten.
When Lynn, my producer, said she hired someone called Vivian, I thought it was for the female lead, no? And then I saw your headshot, and I said to myself, wow, this guy, is he black? Or is it the lighting? All I can see are his teeth.
Sex, Violence, Family Values looks at our prejudices and our habits and puts it on screen in not a very subtle way at all, but that's deliberate. Because here we tend to, I think, hush up a lot of these things and pretend that all is fine and dandy. I don't think that's necessarily the healthiest thing for any society, so why not?
Well, actually, I'm a bit nervous. I don't know whether you read my CV.
Yeah, bravo. Hey,
Sex, Violence, Family Values certainly alarmed the authorities. A range of subject matter is seen as contentious. Political films that undermine national interest, any picture that glamorizes homosexuality, or denigrates any religion or race. In multiracial Singapore, there's concern over what an inflammatory film might provoke.
Historically, you know, Singapore did have a series of race-related riots in the 60s, and I think that trauma has cast a long shadow in the modern history of Singapore as an independent country. But we also have to sort of take the right perspective and say, is this film really going to incite race riots in Singapore? No, that's just plain silly.
Content is controlled through a classification system. The more contentious the subject matter, the more limiting the rating. Very few cinemas show films with a very restrictive rating. Every filmmaker knows the rules.
I do worry about the rating, because if it's R-rated or if it's an NC-16, it means that half of my audience won't be able to watch my show. Money is still important to me. Box office is still important to me.
So many directors self-censor to avoid losing access to an audience. Many of the younger filmmakers in Singapore who embrace subject matter that could concern the authorities are funded by the Media Development Authority, the MDA, a sometimes feared government agency that is both nurturer and nanny to the country's filmmakers because it also patrols film content.
We have certain areas that we don't want people to do, right? Like, things of a religious or racial nature, because of our history. But other than that, we don't really have a lot of restriction. Effectively, most of these films actually are allowed to be screened. It's just that it is actually classified into different categories.
But the MDA's classification system has the provision that in exceptional cases a film may not be allowed for all ratings. The whole issue of banning movies and censorship is very sensitive.
We are not allowed to use the word censorship now because it's called classification. Films are classified, there is censorship, of course. I don't believe in censorship. I think that, Singapore audiences have come to a certain point where we are a very literate society, we are a very educated society, we have a very mature audience that can make their own decisions. If you think that film is not right for you, you make that decision to buy the ticket or not. But at the same time, I have to say that filmmakers, artists, practitioners, they're always very good at working within limits, at working within restrictions. A good example is Iran. I think it's one of the most restrictive countries in the world, but it's produced some of the most subversive and most interesting cinema. Nothing could stop art.
These are quite good times for Singapore cinema. Jack Neo's film Our Boys to Men 2 broke box office records for a locally made film on its opening weekend earlier this year. And with Anthony Chen's film submitted for an Oscar and an international art house hit, there's definite interest in Singapore. There's a window of opportunity where investors and distributors are looking to finance new Singapore films. The filmmaking community in the city-state needs to mobilise before that window closes. Well, that brings this special Singapore edition of Talking Movies to a close. We hope you've enjoyed the programme. Please remember you can always reach us online at our website at bbc.com/Talking Movies, and you can find us on Facebook too. So from me, Tom Brook, and the rest of the Talking Movies production crew here in Singapore, it's goodbye as we leave you with the sights and sounds of Singapore and its cinema.
Whenever I am feeling low, I look around me and I know there's a place that will stay within me, wherever I may choose to go. I will always recall the city, know every street and shore, sail down the river which brings us life, winding